The Maze Runner came out at a really weird time. Why dystopian movies were already dying, audiences were getting tired of the same damn formula, studios were still pumping them out, and most were flopping hard. And yet, somehow this one worked. Not perfectly, it's still got all the usual problems, teenagers played by people pushing 30, a government that thinks the best solution to a global crisis is to murder the fuck out of some kids. Normal stuff. But unlike something like The Darkest Minds, which basically came and went, The Maze Runner managed to build a real audience and finish his story. So what is it about this one that stuck? And more importantly, does it actually hold up? The film begins with the main character Thomas, who remembers nothing about his life, because that worked out so well the last time a movie did that. Either way, he's meeting the Gladers, a fitting name they give themselves because he's in the Glade, and they're all in the Glade. He also is face to face with a person who has the most eyebrows to ever eyebrow. Being serious, Will Poulter does a good job coming from We're the Millers to this, playing distinctly different characters. That's something you learn very quickly. However B-grade the script may be, the actors are not. Anyways, his name is Gally, whose whole character in this film is to taunt Thomas. Speaking of Thomas, he does not like the situation he's in, and realizes that yes, he is in fact the Maze Runner, because he's special. Not writing the short bus special, I mean starve your own half-assed love triangle special, but we'll get to one of those characters later and the other one shows up in the sequels. He gets introduced to Albie, who serves as more of a living exposition machine than anything interesting. Funnily enough, apparently his character was a bit ruder in the books, but I guess they realized Gally fit that role, like I said, so I guess they just gave him no personality in the end. Speaking of Gally, he challenges Thomas to a fight, right after he meets Newt. This fight lasts all of 3 seconds, not 2, which is impressive, where he remembers his name because he gets an absurd amount of brain damage. Sure, that's how it works. Oh yeah, he also forgot his name. That's kind of like the whole thing where they remember really nothing, but they remember their name after a day or two, and so that's kind of like a whole thing, I guess. It's a small part that doesn't really matter. But since Thomas is special, he remembers more. Not enough to actually understand anything with its saw-like editing, but it's something. Albie wakes him up in the most serial killer way the next morning, but he's chill. He's just there to lore drop how people died early on from fear and panic, which might lead you to believe that would play a large role in the film. It doesn't. It's there, sure, but like with the Glade and the Gladers as a whole, it's rather undercooked. So don't expect much of it, because they're kind of just there. It's hard to tell who's who and why I should care, bar the few people I've mentioned. One other character is Chuck, whom he earlier met with before being pressed by Gally. Back in the current time, he gets sent off by Newt to get fertilizer, which is how he sees Ben. Don't worry, you didn't miss anything. I never mentioned him because apart from one shot where he's with an actual important character named Mino, who's a runner, he doesn't play a role. He's just another runner that showed up one other time in a background shot, so you didn't miss anything. But he plays a bigger role here as he was infected by a griever, which is something in the walls you'll learn about later. This is weird because they only come out at night, that's their whole thing, and nobody goes out at night, and nobody survives a night in the maze. This is the point they make earlier, so, it's just so he can ominously forebode what's going to happen later on to Thomas. Or rather, how he was involved with all of this, basically saying a bunch of vague and cryptic stuff so they can build this mystery up later on. Okay. Despite outweighing him and being incredibly well built, Thomas apparently sucks ass at defending himself or running. Wow, he really is the Maze Runner. Anyways, he gets saved by some others as they capture Ben. This is also where we learn of the flare virus. Granted, they have a different name for it.
It's called the changing.
Oh, very clever. Get it? Because they change, so it's called the changing. The ingenuity here astounds me. It knows no bounds. Also, I guess technically this isn't the flare virus, but something similar that the government made to test them, smaller doses, slightly altered, but you know what I mean. They end up exiling Ben to the maze as the walls close, leaving him to die. Oh, and since we're here, I'll just name drop a few characters, like Frypan, right next to Albie, and Zart, this other character, yes, that's his real name, Zart, who's also next to Frypan and Minho. We also get some more 2000s music video-esque flashbacks which show 2 different people who will be important later on, so keep an eye out for that. Thomas talks to Zart, Newt, and Chuck about what just happened and how Albie was the first person in the maze. It's kind of horrifying to think about that, being the first one there all alone, but I don't think it needs to be so plainly stated. The sequels do this better, but this movie's kind of heavy on tell, don't show, which is the opposite of what you want to do, so, Don't worry, Zart contributes to this conversation with his amazing silence. Wow, what a developed character. Sundown comes, as does Rain. Rain. Yeah, that tracks. They notice Mino starting to return, he's a little far away, but with a stung Albie, and during all of this, Thomas books it towards them, entering the maze during night. All bullshit aside, the pacing in this movie is actually kind of good. In terms of plot movement and amount of scenes, it's not bad. I do wish the Gladers had their own stuff besides just doing miscellaneous farming in the background, but hey, a man can only dream. The point is, the pacing is pretty decent. Yeah, it's a little over 30 minutes in, but it feels remarkably fast, so there's that. This is also where we properly meet Minho, who's kind of sarcastic, but feels too toned down in order to not leave much of an impression. Lame. They try to bring Albie up a wall with some vines, but the appearance of a griever makes Minho leave, not before dropping an important bit of info. He's apparently an avid watcher of Seinfeld.
Listen to me, Showface.
Thomas hides, and we get our first proper look at a griever when he gets chased by one. Minho reappears, and with his help, Thomas ends up crushing it. Thus, the trio comes back, with Albie in not-so-good shape still, and oh, there's Winston! Right next to Minho. He's a character. Well, character might be giving a bit too much credit, because he's basically an extra who occasionally slips into a minor role until the sequel where they give him a few more lines, then he kills himself. Wonderful. None of this pleases Gally, as he says,
For 3 years, we have coexisted with these things.
I think you're confusing coexist with not being actively hunted by them because you make a point to avoid them. Kind of a huge difference, man. I mean, if you really want us to understand why he believes this, give him a brief flashback or monologue that doesn't tell everything, but implies he tried killing one and it got a friend killed. Like when he was trying to give speech, he keeps getting reminded of it. You can get some cool transition shots from the speech to the flashback. I don't know, flex your creativity. He sees Thomas as like someone similar to him, but knows what happens when he tries, too much and tries to fight back, so it makes sense why he'd do this, but nope, all we get is him being annoyed before somebody new arrives. A girl. Yeah, the writers didn't think this one through. Whole group full of boys and then one girl. Yikes. Anyways, her name is Teresa and she knows Thomas, creating a nice bit of mystery. She also has with her a few vials of a cure against a disease, the modified one, I guess. Thomas tries talking to Minho and learns all the other runners quit, but Thomas is adamant they figure out what they're up against. Them, along with Frypan, Winston, and Zart, find the remains of the griever and a piece of it that's metal, and also has a number on it for a section of the maze. They return, but before they can do much of anything, they see that Teresa has been hurling rocks at the Gladers. Come on, don't give these morons more brain damage than they— oh, holy shit, he should be dead, right? Wow. I guess kids are resilient. Even though he looks nothing like a kid, but you know what I mean, like they're pretending because who gives a shit. Thomas goes up, because they sort of know each other, like I said, and gets her to calm down. He fills her in on basically everything and how Gally's blaming her for everything now. Wow, this guy really just likes to complain, huh? In fact, Gally decides he hasn't scolded Thomas enough, thus he does it again. He wants the Gladers to punish him, but they just make him a runner instead, and just send him to a night in the pit. This sort of thing that they show a couple times. It's not really a big part. During this, Thomas tries to ask Gally what his problem is with him, and he sort of repeats what Teresa said. He blames them for everything. I kind of understand things have been changing, but dude, you want to spend your whole life in a maze? Guess it's technically the only thing they remember? Which raises a question, how can one make someone forget everything except their name and not run into major complications? Because they clearly sort of remember what girls are, so they remember gender and or biological sex. They know how to write, they know how to cook, at least Albie did if he taught the others. They know how to speak English and, all that other stuff. How much do they genuinely lose in their memories before they don't know how to act like a living thing? I'm sure some of those things are instinctual, obviously, but I'm just kind of curious. It's not a real flaw. I'm just really interested in knowing. Back with the pit, Chuck talks to Thomas and shows him something he made, a wooden figurine of himself. Oh, that's nice. He's definitely dying now. The next day, Thomas and Minho go through the maze and end up finding a new section. Ironically, the movie called Maze Runner takes over an hour to actually get people running through the maze. A large portion of it is just set in the glade. Eventually, the maze realizes, hey, I could just fall apart and kill these guys, and thus tries exactly that, causing another cool action scene. Curious as to how none of this has ever happened before, like killing a griever or whatever. I'm sure at least one of these guys would have enough will to survive and by pure dumb luck do it. You know what? Maybe they just need to be motivated with a controlled shock. I'm sure placing kids in a maze is an incredibly genius way to solve their problems I'll reveal later. They get back and Albie gets one of the vials, and he seems to be cured. However, with the caveat that he actually remembers his life before and how Thomas was their favorite. I have to assume all of this is just to encourage those to actually get out of the maze, as I'm sure they're sick to death of them just dilly-dallying around. It's like watching The Walking Dead Season 2 weekly. Please do something different! Either way, it gives Albie the chance to actually speak, as he's basically been out for the entirety of the second act, which is unfortunate as the gates to the maze don't close, allowing the grievers to get in, killing him. I really wish he had more of a personality, but oh well. Oh yeah, Zart also dies. At least he had a couple lines? I don't know. I also don't know most of these Gladers and how many there are, as I feel the film never properly established that. So I don't really feel like there's been that much of a change to the Glade in terms of people, as most times it's just a few extras in the background. Seeing all this chaos, Thomas decides to figure out what actually happened before all this. He sees that he actually worked on the maze, putting the others in there. So, yikes, you're kinda responsible for this. Day comes and Gally tries to banish them, but because he's so hard-headed, he can't realize that's the opposite of a good idea. he does kind of have a personality, giving him the edge over characters like Winston, Chuck, or Jeff. This guy I never mentioned before because he never really spoke. The most interesting thing about him is the actor would be in the Chi in another movie with Will Poulter, Detroit, directed by Catherine Bigelow. Frypan joins this leaving group, along with Newt, Mino, and a few other extras. You can guess if they survive. We get another cool action scene where the group tries to find the place the Grieves go to into the day, and end up fighting a bunch of them. Most of the extras die, as well as Jeff. Interestingly, the others get flung into a hole, whereas Jeff is just straight up eaten. Weird. The others make it inside and find a facility and see the group responsible for housing them. Wicked. Oh yeah, this is also where they figure out they were being watched, up until very recently, as they watch a video by Ava Page, the woman in charge. She says how the sun destroyed the planet and that the flare, which came afterwards, made people in the cranks and how they're special. Side note, apparently in the books it's explained the sun didn't actually cause the flare, but rather Wicked and other groups after crops died for population control, and they ended up accidentally creating this virus. I say this because other people have misconstrued this and gotten it wrong.
Oh, and since when does a solar flare cause a virus that turns you into a zombie?
Which I understand, it's only really explained in the prequel book, The Kill Order, I believe, so yeah, it's easy to not know this. They see her dead body before seeing Gally, who's been stung, and I'm assuming the others in the glade died, off-screen. Yay. Gally says this is all Thomas's fault and goes to shoot him, but a fucking spear from Mino causes him to miss and shoot Chuck instead. As Gally seemingly dies, so too does Chuck, which is sort of sad, but not really. Like, yeah, a kid dying is sad, and Chuck had some nice moments with Thomas, but aside from that, he didn't really add much to the movie, so, Anyways, the group gets picked up by some other characters, as we see Ava, who didn't actually kill herself. So what, did she just play dead and hope nobody checked her pulse and then awkwardly left, or did she get a stunt double to actually shoot themselves and hope nobody bothered to check her face? Doesn't matter, she's in a boardroom meeting where she says that the trial was a success and that Thomas continues to impress. Oh, that rhymed. Yada yada, a bunch of other typical YA novel stuff. Super important teenagers, gonna save the world, and we see that... What? How was there rain earlier? Okay, sure. Gonna be honest, getting a full look at this place, that shit did not need 3 years to fully map out. You guys were being lazy as fuck. And that was The Maze Runner. Sort of an ultra-dark combination of every cliche there is for the genre. Most of what's new isn't exactly good. However, that's not to say there's nothing good. Yes, some of the characters are stupid, but not all of them are. Yes, some of the decisions are illogical, but not all of them are. Yes, some of the characters are underdeveloped, but not all of them are. It's an interesting premise done competently enough and quick enough to be surprisingly entertaining. I would say, if you have Netflix, go out and see the first, and if you enjoy it, watch the whole trilogy on it. Just don't look at the actual pause screens they have for the movie because they decided it would be a genius idea to straight up spoil the fact that Gally is alive in the death cure. Anyways, it's a fun and decent enough film I think you might enjoy. I hope you liked the video. If you did, feel free to show your support by liking, commenting, or subscribing. All those ways helping the algorithm and are free. Plus it shows YouTube that you want to see more of my videos, so you will be shown more of them. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.